Stories like this are the reason people say they don't want no new friends. This is Mitchell. Mitchell was an 18-year-old who was, well, kind of an idiot. This one day, a couple years ago, he thought it would be a good idea to hit the blunt and then get behind the wheel of this black Chevy Camaro. If that wasn't bad enough, young Mitchell decides to start speeding. And I mean, he's really going. He's clocking in over 100 miles per hour. And of course, as you'd expect, before long, he gets pulled over by a state trooper. As the state trooper approaches the vehicle, he gestures for the young driver to either step out of the car or wind down his windows because he had those illegal tints. Mitchell gets out the car and walks towards the back of the car. As the state trooper is walking towards the vehicle, he kind of leans in and gets a strong whiff of that za and asks Mitchell, has he been smoking? The young dude was honest with the officer and let him know that he did hit the blunt a couple hours ago. He also revealed that he currently doesn't have his driver's license in his possession. So if you're keeping track, to me it sounds like he got 3 strikes already. I mean, the dude is speeding, no license, and he admitted to the officers that he had just hit the blunt. Believe it or not, things only get worse from here. After speaking further with the officer, Mitchell admits that he has some weed in the car with him now. But as the trooper starts asking more questions, Mitchell starts acting suspicious. For example, he all of a sudden can't remember his address or where he was even coming from. By this time, the trooper actually starts noticing that there's some bullet holes on the driver's side door. He asks Mitchell how the bullet holes got there, and of course, you guessed it, Mitchell is at a loss for words. After running the license plate, another piece of the puzzle is revealed. The car was registered to a woman named Chandra Henderson, not Mitchell. The state trooper also notices that the car has one of those GPS devices, in the dash, and it was set to a location. But Mitchell couldn't tell the officer what location the GPS was set to. That's weird, right? Just as the state trooper was getting ready to search the vehicle, this older cat pulled up behind the state trooper's car. Let's call this dude Anthony. Anthony explained to the officer that he was there on behalf of Chandra Henderson, and he was actually looking for her black Chevy Camaro. The car and Chandra's son had apparently gone missing. Her son was named Michael, and he was getting ready to graduate from Grambling State University. But she hadn't heard from him in a couple days. So they figured if they find the car, they may get closer to finding him. And boy, they were kind of right. So things are getting really heavy here for this state trooper, so he decides to call in some backup. And while waiting for backup, he continues to search the vehicle. Tell me why. When the state trooper opens the trunk of the car, he finds a dead body inside. He immediately puts Mitchell in handcuffs and puts him in the back of the patrol car. Police identify the body as Michael Robinson, the missing son of Chandra Henderson, the owner of that black Chevy Camaro. Mitchell clearly has a lot of explaining to do. Once taken into custody, he admits that him and Michael were once friends. He also acknowledges that this looks really bad, so he's gonna do his best to explain everything that happened. According to Mitchell, one of his other friends, named Cameron, came up with an idea to rob Michael. Apparently, Michael was the ideal candidate to get robbed since he always had money. Anyway, they called him and told him to come over because they were hitting the za. And this is where Mitchell's story kinda dives down 2 paths. See, he doesn't tell the same story back to back. He kinda switches it up. In one version of events, they were all smoking outside and Cameron pulls out a heater and blasts at Michael, stands over his body and blasts him again. In another set of events, they're all hitting the za in the apartment, and as they're walking to the car, Cameron pulls out the heater and blasts him right there. Either way, in both stories, Mitchell tries putting the responsibility for the shooting on Cameron. Again, Mitchell reiterates the reason for setting up Mike was because he always had a lot of money. I guess they were thinking Mike would have money on him or in the car, but there was absolutely nothing. However, through further interrogation, it was revealed that when Mitchell got caught speeding, he was actually on his way to this forest area where he was gonna actually try and dump the body. Mitchell and Cameron were then charged with second-degree murder, and their bail was set at $500,000. So because this dude can't seem to keep his story straight, after all this, police brought him back in again to interrogate him to see if his story changed for a third time. And boy, did it. Turns out, Mitchell lied about Cameron's involvement in this whole thing. He and Cameron got into a disagreement a few days prior, and he was still upset about it. So I guess he figured he'd try to ruin his life?
Jeez, what is wrong with these kids?
The charges against Cameron were obviously dropped. Mitchell was sentenced to 25 years for manslaughter. Moral of the story? Man, watch the company you keep. Just because someone says they're your friend, that doesn't really make them your friend. R.I.P. Michael Robinson.